Good morning. It's Monday, June 14th, and today I'm going to talk about an example of what's really going on in this country and the craziness that exists and the terrible shape that we as a people are in if an event like this can happen. It was Senior Awards Night in West Point, Mississippi. It's a special event when they announce who is going to be the valedictorian and the saluatorian of the senior class. So this is what happened. And when these two students were announced as the 2021 valedictorian and saluatorian for the West Point High School, there was a huge gasp in the audience. And then there was boisterous cheering and applause. But that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning. Proud moment. Two young black ladies standing side by side and given such honors. And the president of the local NAACP from West Point, Mississippi, was in the audience and smiled. But almost immediately, the joy was taken away. Parents of other students near the top rankings raised questions about who should have been honored. The other students that they were talking about were not students of color. So within days, and breaking with long-standing tradition, the West Point, Mississippi High School decided to name two valedictorians and two saluatorians. Two white students were joining the black students who had previously been named. Now, was that an outrage or what? There was a recount. Are we a country that lives for the recount now? Last 3 weeks since the Senior Awards Night, West Point, which is a mostly black town in the northeastern part of Mississippi, has been split along racial lines. There has been a potential lawsuit and allegations of racism posted on Facebook. I don't see how they could just say allegations. It was obvious that it was a racist reaction to the two young black women who won the award. Not awards that you win because you perform once or twice. This is an award that you get for outstanding performance over 4 years of high school. And to claim that other people deserve the award when their grades were not as good as these two young women is ridiculous. Now, maybe that's never happened before in West Point, but I find it hard to believe if it's a mostly black community that something like this hasn't happened before. And if it hasn't happened before, then I would suspect that before, the awards weren't necessarily always honest. So now, get this. The school officials say race had nothing to do with the events in West Point, but instead blamed a mistake made by a school counselor, resulting largely from confusion over which of the two methods for calculating final grades should have been used. Is that a bullshit story or what? In a world where grades are very important, it seems, and parents are very obstreperous and fight for the tiniest edge over their classmates, there was a suit similar to this in Alpine, Texas, a town with a population of 6,000. So while I thought this could be a unique situation, it turns out that it wasn't. Currently, this situation has happened in Mississippi before. Mississippi is known that school systems have defied federal orders to admit black students in the first place. And the subject of educational equality is still very raw in the minds of people there. And in the past 5 years, black women in Cleveland, Mississippi, about 150 miles away from West Point, have twice filed federal lawsuits alleging they have been cheated in their school selection of valedictorian and saluatorian. So this maybe seems to be standard practice in Mississippi. You go to school, you perform great, and you get screwed at graduation because of the color of your skin. That's a terrible situation. I often ask myself, why would anybody of color live in Mississippi? I can't answer that question. And this is not an isolated incident. Apparently, Lisa Ross, a lawyer in Jackson, the state capital, says that every year she gets requests to file lawsuits because some black children have been denied an award based upon their grades. Seems to be common practice in Mississippi, and it's a big struggle in Mississippi. Now, the parents of the two white children that were given awards after the ruckus said that their kids deserved those awards. They worked their asses off to get those awards. And they had been watching these grades for years for their children. And they felt that their two white children were cheated and they deserved their awards. Now, when I was in high school, I went and, I got through high school. I didn't care about any awards. My parents never pushed us that hard. My brother went on to be a doctor. I did okay in my life without getting any awards. But it's a big deal in Mississippi, I guess. As it turned out, the real issue was how to calculate who the top two students were. The black students won based upon a calculation of quality point average, or QPA, a calculating system that gave extra weight to advanced placement and dual credit courses. But it turned out that the two white students were the top two finishers based upon the unweighted GPA. So if you use two different methods of calculating, then you have problems. So it's obvious that the black students won on the QPA and the white students won on the GPA, and that probably means that the white students didn't have as good a QPA as the black students did. And as it turns out, in the high school handbook, the GPA is supposed to be the methodology for calculating the final grade. So, in any event, all of these factors should be known before the awards are given out. That everybody is getting their award based upon a single qualification system. That's not what happened. And between the senior awards night and the graduation, this entire episode in the West Point High School graduating class was recounted over and over in current day media, which means it was out on Facebook every single day. And so that caused a lot of grief to a lot of people. But in any event, the graduation went off with 2 saluatorians and 2 validictorians. And it ended somewhat peacefully. So that's all I have to say today. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.